Stranger Things ended, and it was such an unsatisfying season that people had to come up with conspiracy theories that there was a secret 9th episode somewhere, the Conformity Gate theory, which obviously didn't happen. Instead, they published a documentary explaining how they started shooting the finale without having a finished script, how everything was rushed, and the Duffer Brothers literally looking like this the entire time. Back in season 1, I couldn't stop watching. I just had to see what happened next. Is Dr. Brenner gonna catch them? Is Joyce ever gonna see Will again? The stakes were high, the characters felt emotionally real. Everything was perfect. And with each season, as the budget got higher, the stakes somehow got lower. The Upside Down turned into a hangout spot. The villains just couldn't keep up with the unbeatable plot armor. Hey Mind Flayer, how about instead of spring or summer, you come to Hawkins in, I don't know, winter? Ever thought of that? Wouldn't it be much harder to burn you when it's cold outside? And look, I still enjoyed most seasons, the Mind Flayer taking over Will's mind, the evil Billy arc, but at some point, everything did start to become kind of predictable. Characters just kept surviving impossible scenarios. The love triangle with Steve, Jonathan, and Nancy was playing on repeat. Elle always came in last second to save the day. Season 4 did kind of change that though. It had a much more unique approach, even horrifying at times, and it was also important because it laid the groundwork for Season 5, which I had high expectations for after having seen what Vecna was capable of. But the guy went from altering time and place to hanging out with kids. Both very scary characters, but in a different way. One is an evil monster that just might destroy the world. The other is a weird creep who likes to hang out with kids. Kind of. So season 4 ended with several gates opened to the Upside Down, and it's scary. There's smoke in the air, and here I was thinking this is where they will pick up season 5 from, because Vecna took his last victim, right? He's ready to bring in the monsters or whatever he's been planning, right? Right? There's one thing I want to mention about Season 4 Vecna that really confused me at the time. So before he appeared, there was always these spiders crawling out. That was Callie's signature move, if you remember, sort of. And I kept thinking, wait, Callie must be in on this. But then it turned out they were just reusing the same special effects, so jokes on me for remembering the Lost Sister episode, I guess. But come Season 5, cool and scary Vecna moments like that basically never happened. No creepy clock slowing down sound, no spiders crawling around. Vecna didn't even try to kill anyone. He was mostly just talking like a poet. I mean, he did have one scene where he used his powers to make Hopper think he shot Elle in the water tank. That was super creepy, man. I really love that. I actually got anxious because I thought it was real, but they only did that once in the entire season, in the final episode. But my biggest and immediate problem with season 5 was that Teddy didn't even get a single bacon. Let's face it, Teddy's the real victim in Stranger Things. Nobody ever appreciates him. He almost gets cheated on and can't even have breakfast in his own house. But anyway, they have DJ Robin explain on the radio how the transition from this to this happens, but Steve is there to add a sound effect every 2 seconds, and I'll be honest, I kept getting so distracted by them that I ended up not understanding anything. After having rewinded a couple of times, I finally got it. Apparently the military used metal patches to cover the gaps spilling through the Upside Down, and it makes total sense because it's metal. If it were wooden patches, we'd all be very upset, and I get why they did it, right? If they start where they left off, they don't get to warm us up. Slowly. Very slowly. You know, with as much watch time as possible, long episodes dragging out, the classic old Stranger Things things. And this already is alarming because if Vecna's 4th victim was enough to open gates from the Upside Down, he should have been able to act upon it and do whatever it was he was planning on doing, which, spoiler alert, turns out it was just kidnapping kids. That's his ultimate plan, but he doesn't even begin to do that for a long time. For some reason, he decides to go back to lick his wounds, as Lucas puts it in one episode, which is very strange considering the guy can heal his broken leg in a matter of seconds. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would make my day the right side up, because right now I'm in the Upside Down. Thank you so much. But anyway, let's say he's tired, needs a break, is bored, whatever. And I assume that eventually he came back to the gates, right? What did he do then? Oh no, they patched it all up. Well, can't rush the plan now, gotta take it slow. And I would have been fine had it been for the fact that he actually does something throughout the season, like anything. He doesn't even show up until episode 4. It felt like the Duffer Brothers just kept on writing a bunch of stuff for the characters to do until they can figure out what Vecna's plan actually was all along. And sadly, they can't even come up with new stuff, so they just repeat the same storylines, like, here we go again. I wonder who Nancy will end up being with this time, not like we've been teasing at this for 5 seasons straight already. But hey, let's make Jonathan and Steve race this radio tower for her holy love. I'm sure the audience at home will enjoy this, and if they don't, we'll shove it down their throats like Vecna does with Will. Then there's this backstory of Will and how he survived in the Upside Down. Whoa, did he just jump from one tree to another without any momentum? That's all leg power, by the way. At least put the tree a little bit closer so it's believable. And did I already mention the repeating storylines? Because I got another one for you. A lab with once again secret government experiments going on. Look, I'll level with you. Before having watched the entirety of the season, I had written down a bunch of speculations on Vecna's ultimate plan. But after the finale, I realized that Vecna was just a pawn. The real villains were the Duffer Brothers for ruining Vecna, but also for still making characters continuously lie to each other in the most stupid ways possible. Hopper lies to Elle about her timing, Mike lies to his sister about monsters not being real, and the Duffer Brothers lie to us that season 5 finale has things that are very surprising. Actually, you know what? That was kind of true, because I was really surprised how there were no Demogorgons like at all. Here's an interesting theory though. Lies are what keeps the show going. Humor me for a moment. Think back to Max in Dear Billy, up until the very last moment where she stops denying her own feelings, her own grief, and she speaks her truth to Billy. She's sort of freed and can escape Vecna's mind with the help of the song, of course. Same principle applies in season 5. Mike lies to Holly about monsters not being real, and immediately a Demogorgon hunts her down, like a punishment almost. Even Will continues to lie to himself about his feelings, and when he confesses in a very, very long talk, the show is basically over. The villain is defeated. Don't ask me how, it just is. I do kind of wish they had kept lying, because at least when they were lying, Stranger Things felt like it had strange things happening and not this filler feel-good show with practically zero stakes. And the zero stakes stems from the fact, as I said before, how plot armor is so deeply rooted into the show's identity that we know for a fact it can't ever be touched. Seriously, all you need is a flowchart to see if a character could die or will definitely not die. Here's a flowchart for your reference. Is the character new? Yes. Are they underage? Yes. Will live? No. Are they romantically engaged to any of the main characters? Yes. Other than Joyce, because she needs to end up with Hopper for a happy ending? No. Will die? Is the character new? No. Is the character part of the main cast? Yes. Will never die? No. Could they become part of the main cast? Yes. Will never die? No. F*** 'em. Kill 'em. Make the Demogorgon bite their head off. Is the character a very close relative to the main cast? Yes. Might look like they're about to die, but won't die. No. Bye-bye. So what ends up happening is that cliffhangers disappear. You don't feel that tension, that feeling of it's 2 a.m., but I gotta see what happens in the next episode, otherwise I can't sleep. Because that's how the first seasons felt, right? We had no idea anyone could die at any given moment. That Demogorgon thing, super scary. I was at the edge of my seat the entire time. But with newer seasons, I started to realize that these guys are here to stay. I don't know, maybe the writers were like, dude, we gotta kill Steve off in a heroic act, like when he's trying to bash the Demogorgon. And someone was like, well, actually, Steve became the fan favorite of our focus group. Oh, okay. Let's take out Jonathan then. We make sure his mother is around and it's an emotional moment. We can't. People love the love triangle thing too much. Oh, yeah. Makes sense. Let's then make sure Lucas is out and the gang loses a member. No big deal. Actually, people love the gang as a whole though. Plus he's underage, so don't want to alienate the audience. Also, that is kind of racist. Right, okay. You know what? Let's just kill Eddie. him. We'll create a special kind of creature, like, I don't know, maybe a flying Demogorgon bat. They'll eat Eddie and then disappear for the rest of the show, and that'll prove everyone that we mean business. We're ready to axe off any one of these characters, except the main cast, of course. If we look at our flowchart again, you could see Eddie's death coming from a mile away. The flowchart also tells us that Holly, being a relative to the main cast, could never die. And that's what I mean when I say predictability. The moment I saw the Demogorgon ripping open Holly's ceiling, I went to bed and slept like SpongeBob. I was not worried for her in the slightest. And guess what? Holly survived. Even the parents survived. Here we can see the Demogorgon, who usually bites people's heads off, calmly approach Karen as she breaks her wine bottle and dares the monster to come at her. Would have been a lot cooler if the Demogorgon actually did any damage, but he just pushed them to the side to get to Holly, and I guess it knew that this was part of the main cast. Same thing with Dustin. He's at the cemetery when bullies show up and they beat him to death almost, and we don't know what happens to him afterwards. He doesn't show up, and nobody's the tiniest bit worried that, I don't know, maybe Vecna got him? Like maybe something went horribly wrong, guys? You know, how it's been happening all these years? Anybody? But I mean, were you worried? I wasn't. I knew he'd be alright because 1, he's main cast, 2, nobody else seemed to care either. And ultimately, I think the bullying scene was just the writers saying, we know they look older, but they actually aren't. Look, they're still getting bullied by the big guys in high school because they never mention how Dustin got away or what happened after. Like, did he take those kids out? Did he just go home and rest without calling in the gang? No idea. He just randomly shows up in the same clothes with a beat up nose. He didn't even try to clean himself, somehow knowing exactly where the van was. But you know, it's the last season, so I thought that the flow chart was gonna shatter at some point. Things were bound to get messy, right? A happy ending for sure, but not one without consequences. In hindsight, what a stupid thought to have. I mean, were there moments where I held my breath throughout the season? No, there weren't. Were there moments I was like, wait, are they gonna die? Yeah, there actually were. Like when Nancy and Jonathan were trapped in a soon-to-be cement-filled room. Was I utterly disappointed in the last minute by some Deus Ex Machina nonsense and everyone miraculously surviving? Yes, of course I was. But to the Duffer Brothers' credit, they did try to distract me with a really weird breakup scene. Like, look, we killed their relationship. That counts, right? Honestly, my fault for actually thinking things were gonna change. The moment Hopper didn't get a single scratch from the Demogorgon attacks in the Upside Down, back in the first episode, I should have lowered my expectations to like 0 or something. One is also fine. And when the Wheelers were attacked, I thought, wow, okay, here we go. I guess I was wrong because, you know, things are starting to get serious. But no, they're sent to the hospital and saved because, hey, we need them to be at the graduation later on. Can't have a happy ending with dead parents. And well, the audience demands a happy ending. No, we don't. I mean, sure, maybe a little, but it needs to be earned. If you show me a monster ripping off heads only to tickle important people in another scene, it doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel just. Season 1 had like several deaths. Barbara, the diner guy. Season 2, Bobby, who I actually started to like, and they take him out. Fine, makes sense. Consequences are a real thing. Season 3 had Billy. Season 4 had Eddie, and I agree, totally dumb to kill off such a cool character. Felt very unnecessary. But the point is, deaths have been a thing in Stranger Things. That doesn't make it sad or boring. It actually makes it feel real. And the victory feels earned. Season 5 had practically no deaths. And we have one guy to thank for that, Vecna. Here's a really weird sequence of events that made me question his entire arc. He says stuff like, I am many things, but I am not a liar. And yet he's lying like constantly. Then I thought, but maybe he isn't. Think about it. He might sincerely believe that he's fixing the world, the universe, since he's been brainwashed by the Mind Flayer during that cave incident. And I was like, yeah, this guy actually thinks he's doing good. But then they show him in a scene where he sneakily smiles into the camera, breaking the fourth wall, which, well, contradicts with the idea that he was actually brainwashed, that he actually believed he was saving the world. Because he literally looks like he's plotting something evil and he's happy that he's got the kids fooled. So there goes that theory. But I remember back in the very first episode of season 4, and they hadn't even shown Vecna yet. And I was already terrified. You're in the bathroom stall and something is banging on the door. Something wants you. It was so creepy. And I also totally expected him to be defeated by the end of season 4, but then a pleasant surprise proved me otherwise. Vecna might have lost the battle, but the war wasn't over. He had gotten everything that he wanted from Hawkins. And next season, it was all gonna come down, baby. Then they decided to give him a backstory, which, okay, sure. Look, backstories can be a good thing, as long as you don't dig more into it. But they did. They dug more into it. In season 5, they kept giving us memories of Henry, how broken he really was, how his power came to, and his whys and the whats of Vecna, basically. And all of a sudden, Vecna turned into a senile old man who forgot to use his moisturizer and keeps talking about saving the world. The moment you over-explain evil, make him known, humanize him even, it kind of kills all the things that made them or him terrifying in the first place. Things I can't understand, things that are just a little hidden in the dark. Those are the things that scare me. I feel like us knowing that El banished Henry, who then became Vecna, was enough backstory for us. It worked. We didn't really need to know how sad, so really sad he was. And I'm just gonna say it, I think season 5 was the worst season of the entire show. Later in the documentary, we get to see the behind the scenes and it becomes clear why. Everything was rushed. I have difficulty remembering season 2, but granted, that was years ago. I hardly have a recollection of season 5, and I watched it literally last week. Joyce was the very reason many of us fell in love with the show in the first place. And with each new season, the focus shifted from her to the kids. And there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but the magic that kept me glued to the screen, that made my stomach cramp as this mom was trying her best to convince people she's not crazy, that her son was still alive. I felt all that, the helplessness. The show used to make me feel something with Elle, with Joyce, Billy, even Eddie. Season 5 tried to do too much, too many characters, too many subplots, and I was like, there isn't any warmth. I don't actually care for these people anymore. What happened to them? Why do they feel like robots most of the time? The way they used to portray these characters was through each other's eyes. They don't show you Jonathan. They show him through Will's eyes. And to Will, he's a hero. And I immediately feel like I have a big brother, Jonathan, and he's a hero to me, someone that would listen to music with me if I was feeling down, someone who I could rely on. And they don't stop there. They show his struggles, how he's an outcast, how he was just never able to fit in. There were all these moments where I felt part of the show instead of watching it. Like I see Jonathan taking pictures of Nancy undressing, and I feel complicit. I feel embarrassed. I hope nobody saw me with him. Even season 2 still had that warmth to the show. It wasn't anything like season 1, but it was still intimate, I see Joyce putting Will through torture for the sake of saving him, and my hands start to sweat. I want it to end. But I'll be honest, I feel like there was almost no character development, and they just kind of kept repeating themselves over time. Joyce was the worried mom. Will, the possessed kid, always disconnected and constantly zoning out. Jonathan wasn't really an outcast anymore, but he still acted like one. So he was stuck too. And because there was no development, by season 5, everyone's just mostly flat. I could already guess what Joyce's reaction would be if Will is in the slightest of dangers. But seriously, what even was that Joyce season 5 arc about? I feel like all she did was express her worries, talk as little as possible, and worry some more. I know that a show can't revolve around the same character forever. Actually, no. In fact, that's the whole point of a show. You love a character, the show revolves around them. They're mostly the main act. We see some side characters every now and then that have some form of connection to the main character, and that's sort of how a show works, really. But Stranger Things have more than one main character. Will, Mike, Elle, Joyce all could be considered main characters. Okay, fine, revolve the show around those main characters then. Nope. In season 5, something changed. They said, Holly is our main character now. Enjoy. And look, I think she did great as an actor, but I just never cared for her anytime she appeared on screen. It felt more like I was watching a spin-off of Stranger Things starring Holly. Holly in Vecnaland or something. And that's fine if it's a spin-off, but it wasn't. Like, imagine Holly from Breaking Bad, Walter's daughter, grew up in the last season, and she was, 13 or something. So she becomes the main character, and she's trying to figure out what her dad is up to and stuff. Ew. No, don't like that. In the season 5 documentary, Nancy says something rather interesting and then sort of zones out. She says, interesting. Holly was always there, but nobody was really minding her. Yeah, I think that's an understatement to say the least. Nobody really cared for Holly. It was the last season of the show and suddenly she was the main character. Give us Mike and the gang doing absurd things, executing crazy plans. Actually, well, they did give us a little bit of that, at least 1 or 2 times in the entire season. But it just, wasn't enough to be satisfied with, at least for me. Joyce went from a heroic mom that would do anything to protect her son to a kind of overbearing mother, and that's all she became, nothing more. It felt like she was only there to make sure Will doesn't do anything remotely useful until the final reveal. But another element that made season 1 so addicting was how the villain was basically Dr. Brenner. The Demogorgon too, but hear me out, Dr. Brenner. This guy felt more threatening than any other villain in the entire show, in my opinion. A guy in a lab coat who's trying to kidnap your friend is willing to kill anyone that is in his way, even your family, and who's got the government behind him, so good luck going to the police. You might just end up becoming a missing case person and then told in some YouTube podcast episode. Like really, how is it possible that Dr. Brenner ended up being the scariest villain in Stranger Things? Season 2 had a Demogorgon and the Mind Flayer inside of Will, which was basically just some walkie-talkie enemy, so not at all threatening, I would say. Season 3 had the Meat Flayer, which was pretty sick. Not gonna lie, a bunch of human meltdown mixed together to form the ultimate monster. Pretty freaking awesome if you ask me. It did, however, die out rather easily. To me, Dr. Brenner wins on all accounts. And for those who say Demogorgon is scarier, I'd rather run away from a monster that you can kind of chase away with fire than to try and escape government people that will hunt me down forever no matter where I go. Plus, the Demogorgons ultimately were the biggest disappointment in the history of Stranger Things, an animalistic and disturbing monster that used to haunt our dreams, reduced to mere delivery boys. Yes, you heard me right, delivery boys. Like some food delivery app person. They don't deliver pizza per se, but they do kidnap children and bring them to Henry. And well, humans are made out of meat, so... Oh, and they occasionally kill soldiers. They must have been flooding with deliveries in the final episode because they don't even show up. Now, this was addressed in the documentary. Paul Dichter argues that Demogorgons, bats, dogs, at least something should be included in the abyss. But then the Duffer Brothers and this other writer lady say, but what about demo fatigue? Did I hear that right? You want to talk to me about demo fatigue? What do you mean demo fatigue? If anything, what makes these monsters fatiguing is the fact that they don't ever try to hurt any of the main cast. That's what's fatiguing. They just keep ignoring them and only attacking the military people. Do you even know what fatigue means? It's fatiguing. Anyways, as I said, the Demogorgons are practically delivery boys doing whatever Vecna demands of them. And don't even get me started on the whole why is Vecna AFK and base storyline? Like, why isn't he just taking care of business himself ever? What's he doing this entire time? I don't get it. This guy went from being able to hunt down anyone anywhere to just chill back in his makeshift wonderland where he plots to collect children because their minds are weak and does not a single time try to take out the gang one by simply moving his hands like he does here with the military. Let's have a big round of applause for the final season villain. This is his first appearance after 4 long episodes, if you don't count the first episode of, Memory Belly Vecna. And wow, he's been working out. I guess that answers why he didn't attack Hawkins immediately. He didn't want to do it looking like this. No shame in wanting to become healthier, Vecna. Just one thing. I really don't get why you came all this way to just kill the soldiers, have a chat with Will, tell him that he's weak and that he sucks, and then calmly leave. Aren't you gonna destroy the world anyway? Why not just kill these guys too? You're here. I mean, it doesn't have to be Will, man. You could take out any of the other guys, maybe one of his friends, to send a message. Make them actually fear for their lives or something. Vecna, you're just gonna leave then. Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could always do it later. Oh, I see. You're gonna send your servants to handle the job. Even though you were here like 10 seconds ago and it takes you less than a stare to kill everyone, but hey, I get it. A boss has gotta delegate. Also, the Demogorgons don't attack them before they kidnap the children because it doesn't work with the script. Vecna's talking. So they don't want to steal the spotlight and instead come back later to finish the job. But I once again didn't feel any fear or excitement because there's no way they don't kill off anyone then suddenly kill 3 characters at the same time. And of course, Will activates his superpowers because that was the only way left to save them. I'll be honest though, that looked pretty cool. Yeah, give us more of that. No? Okay. Turns out he was banking on Will to never come out of the closet. He just talks to kids all day. That's it. That's the villain in season 5. For most part, anyway. And look, maybe I'm just dumb. I've never written a successful show, so don't take my word for it. But I wish they didn't try to explain stuff to us and try to make sense of everything. Like, this isn't math. We don't have to get it. We just want to enjoy it. The whole Abyss wormhole thing was simply a mess. Just keep the Upside Down real as a parallel evil universe with actual monsters in it, and make Vecna push out of those gates with demogorgons and bats and whatnot for all of Hawkins to fight back. I don't know. Or you can just show us Henry every other episode, smiling, plotting, chasing children like a kindergarten teacher. I guess that works too. What also bugs me is the inconsistency when it comes to characters that the writers love or the audience loves. I get it. Max, a really cool character, fan favorite, sure. In season 4, she literally said that she couldn't see. How do you get back to seeing? And I'm sure there are some of you doctors out there who are gonna type, well, actually, facts. There are phenomenons called, oh no, my eye, where you lose vision temporarily. But I mean, look at what Vecna did to her, man. She was practically dead. How do they just snap back her limbs and her eyes are definitely gone? I didn't mind that they brought her back. At least, try to make it believable. Maybe she wakes up blind or she doesn't remember anything because Vecna blocked that part of her memory. So, they have to try and remind her. I don't know, anything other than she's perfectly fine. Because then I wouldn't feel the need to question the integrity of the show. Like, if there aren't gonna be any consequences, why am I even wasting my time? I mean, they're always gonna come on top and nothing bad can ever happen to them because they're magically protected. What's the point? As far as I remember, this isn't a sitcom, but it might as well be because nothing bad ever happens to these guys. Let's go back to season 3 Billy, and I don't know how a show can make me care about a clearly racist bully like Billy. Bully like Billy. Bully Billy. But it did. And most of us loved him. I really appreciate when an actor can portray an evil dude in such a charming way that they have that Stockholm syndrome kind of going for them. I also think that he single-handedly carried season 3 with that charm, by the way. And guess what? They killed him off. An insanely well-written character with huge potential, even better acting, and probably one of the fans' favorite too. But we loved it anyway. It felt heroic. Right, the redemption arc was beautiful. I go back and I watch it again and I still feel something. Without his death, we wouldn't have had Dear Billy, one of the greatest episodes of the history of Stranger Things. Character deaths aren't necessarily the end. They sometimes are a gateway to something so much better. But because the writers refuse to take risks each season, we get the same old gang running the same old gig. And while I get Billy dying, Eddie was simply killed because they needed Dustin to be sad in season 5. That's it. I mean, they took out Billy so that Max would be sad too, I guess. But with Eddie, I don't know. I feel like Dustin being depressed wasn't nearly as real as Max's. Dustin was just grumpy all the time and he kept arguing or shouting at Steve. Maybe what makes a character so compelling and good is the very fact that they're short-lived. We don't get enough of them. So we're left wanting more. Like, imagine Steve died in season 1. Pretty sure we'd all be talking about him. I guess we still do, but not like we do with Eddie or Billy. Not with that yearning. More like, well, yeah, Steve's still around. And no, he did not fall off that tower. Somehow Jonathan used his flash powers to save him last second. And you know what? I call bullshit on that falling scene, other than the fact that the Duffer Brothers were literally mocking at us with an attitude that screams, look, we totally could kill him, and maybe we did, but we didn't. And we never will, so f*** you. But seriously, let's think about this. How much weight can you carry in one arm? 30, 40? And I mean, it depends for each person, I guess. So imagine a 70 to 80 kilogram dumbbell that drops from the side of the ledge. Even if you were right next to it, there's just no chance for you to grab it in time and be able to carry that much weight in one arm. I didn't want to do this, but I remember some physics from high school and even university, and Newton's laws of motion states F is equal to m times a. F is the force, so how strong it's pulled down, and m is mass, and a is for acceleration. If we assume gravity to be 10, it's actually 9.8 meters per second squared. But for the purpose of a quick calculation, here F would be equal to 70 times 10, which is like 700. And well, I'm not exactly sure what that 700 represents here, like just the Newton number. But, you could argue that Jonathan caught him in less than a second, but we can already see that he kind of falls for like half a second and maybe even more. And also the way Jonathan holds his hand just makes no sense to me. Steve would have never been able to grab that hand since he's basically in free fall unless Jonathan is immediately there without Steve ever kind of waving his arm. That motion already indicates Jonathan should be too late. If Jonathan had hold of Steve's arm, maybe that could have made a little more sense, but even then this is just too surreal and an unnecessary attempt at making the audience gasp. And what was that cut to black about? That 5 seconds delay. Like, I'm really curious how many of you actually thought he had fallen. Anybody? That would have been lame, no? Falling off the tower, slipping? They go back after saving the world, and when people ask, hey, what happened to Steve? They go, he slipped? Is he dead? We didn't really see it. He just slipped from the tower. He might be dead. He probably is. But honestly, even then, a demo bat would have just appeared to save Steve because somehow Eddie's soul had entered one of the demo bats or some other shenanigans, and there's no way Steve would have died. If I had to rank the seasons theme-wise, I'd say the first one is the darkest, but also my favorite. Second is creepy, but isn't as gripping as the first. I guess that's not really a theme, but you get the point. Third season is like the super fun sci-fi with a really interesting storyline, that really resonated with me, especially with that whole Bill arc. Not the best season to watch while eating something, though. Fourth season was actually a pleasant surprise. I thought that by then they would have run out of ideas and just recycle, but it turned out insanely well, and the premise kept me guessing. It was scary, with the whole Vecna arc and what's gonna happen next. The slowing clock sounds just kept making me nervous for some reason. Season 5 is what happens when you decide to keep every single character alive and add new ones but don't have enough time to go through them all. It just wasn't good. It had its moments, I guess, but I didn't enjoy it. And honestly, I even kept zoning out every now and then just because they kept showing characters I didn't care about. I genuinely had to go back and rewatch scenes just to be able to write the script. And even though it had been like 10 days since the finale had aired, Netflix kept crashing. I'm pretty sure even months later, people will still be waiting for that 9th episode, conspiring to their friends like, oh, but Andy, you gotta hear me out, man. Tonight's tonight. I just know it, man. Look, I've been going over this at the post office, all this paperwork. I know I should be doing my mail instead of researching for the Stranger Things lost episode, but I just couldn't, man. I just couldn't. I had a hunch. 13th of June is the night. You know how I know, man? Well, I just kept watching the show on repeat, basically just blasting it through my earphones while sleeping even. And it's a little bit more than 8 hours, so I just have to keep listening in the morning for 1-2 hours. There's a scene where Jonathan says, will you not marry me to Nancy? And that trap room scene, he actually shakes his head. Listen, Andy, listen, don't interrupt me now, please. I just need you to hear this, man. He shakes his head left and right, Andy. You know what that means, don't you? It means he says, will you not? And shakes his head in movement left to right. Universally, well, except for Bulgaria. Don't ask me how I know this, but in Bulgaria, it means yes. Anyway, my point is he actually was proposing to her. And because Nancy accepts, she actually agrees to marry her. 13th of June is the day they'll marry, Andy, because it unlocks the number. We just gotta keep checking for that lost episode. It could come any day, Andy. We just need to keep looking. Okay, buddy. Good luck with all that. Season 3 also had that whole gig with Steve, Robin, and the kids discovering the secret Russian base, while our A-team was busy deflecting a huge meat monster. But also, Robin hadn't yet started talking in a high note all the time, like she's about to sing a song but decides not to. And you know what I mean, don't you? This here is exactly what I mean. Haha, I'm so happy that it's the end of the world almost, but not really because we're in a show. Oh, don't worry, we'll figure it out. I talked about how Joyce and Jonathan were reduced to basically flat, lifeless characters that didn't contribute much in the later seasons, and sadly, they weren't the only ones. Along with Robin, we have Murray, who was a creepy conspiracy theorist that turned into I don't even know what he turned into exactly. It's just a weird guy, gets excited about anything and everything almost, and it felt like he kept delivering different lines in the same mundane way. So much so that even though I was listening to him, once his scene was over, I immediately forgot what he said. Steve was still trying to win back Nancy, as you know, but in the final episode, he has that almost death scene, and he looks Jonathan in the eyes and he realizes something. He doesn't need Nancy. As they're walking with Jonathan in the abyss, it's just this relaxing walk. They both admit that they just wanted to be friends with Nancy, nothing more. Wow, okay. Every season we were teased whether Nancy was going to end up with Jonathan or Steve or Jonathan, but then the Duffer brothers probably realized that if Nancy ended up with either one of them, the fans of the other person were gonna revolt. So they decided, you know what, no one gets Nancy. Everybody's happy. Man, the writers really didn't want to make anyone upset, did they? The only reasonable explanation within the show I could come up with was that maybe they got a little scared of Nancy. You know how when she turned into this Rambo powerhouse of sorts, they both kind of felt, she's a great gal and all, but I think it's best we remain friends. And here I thought the Terminator storyline in season 3 was annoying. I was so mad when they kept showing this random dude trying to hunt down Hopper for no apparent reason other than him bumping into his chair. I kept wondering, wait, why am I watching this guy? Who is he and why should I care? I didn't. Up until the very end, I did not care one bit about him, and they kept showing him anyway, and even gave him a very dramatic death scene. And I thought, wow, okay, that muscular guy just died. Cool, I guess. But come season 5, the writers weren't quite fulfilled with the whole Terminator arc, The Duffer Brothers, they'd just taken some creatine and some protein powder and they were feeling pumped. They wanted more muscle, more action. What they do is they just turn Nancy into a warrior. And yes, I know that she was always able to aim well, but that doesn't explain how she's able to pull the trigger of such big guns with practically no recoil, considering she's quite petite. I mean, I went to military for a super short period, and during our practice shooting, I thought my shoulder was gonna pop out. But also, trained soldiers? Really? She's able to take on several trained soldiers, and the Duffer Brothers, they didn't stop there. They realized they also needed an ending. And while going through the Terminator arc in season 3, they thought to themselves, wait a second, season 3 must have had an ending. We could just use a similar one. The fact that the meat flare monster couldn't withstand a few fireworks was so disappointing. I honestly think Billy himself was a much better villain compared to it. At least Billy felt threatening and he did some real damage. The meat flare just ate a bunch of people Billy brought him and then whoosh, disappeared once the gate closed. So for season 5, they just copy-paste the ending of season 3, really. How the gang just ran upstairs at the mall to attack the meat flare from above? This time, they climb up mountains. What? When did they get up there? Alex Honnold's agent probably called him after this and said, Alex, I've got some bad news. That El Capitan climb you did? You gotta do it again, but faster. It's so unreasonable for them to assume we just accept that in one frame they're running and the next they're up the mountains as though there was a secret elevator somewhere. And I really expected the Mind Flayer to put up a real fight this time around, but nope, it checked out even before the fight had begun. I'm pretty sure it was thinking, I can't do this. They got too many bullets, even some fire, and also flare guns. They also appear to be insanely skillful climbers. I'm dead meat. I mean, I literally am, but I'm gonna be dead meat soon. Nothing I can do other than scream in agony and look defeated. Actually, I take it back. They didn't copy season 3 ending at all. Season 5 was much worse. Something else that always confused me in season 4 was how Vecna got back to Hawkins in the first place, since the gates were closed in season 3, right? And if you could always just come, why didn't the Mind Flayer make him help fight these guys at the mall? Well, you see, the Duffer Brothers don't expect us to use our brains when making connections like these and just accept or interpret it in our own ways. Vecna decided to come in season 4. Okay, a gate was opened behind the scenes when nobody was looking, and now he needs 4 people to open more gates. Why 4? Who knows? Maybe it's his favorite number. Maybe because it's season 4. I don't know if you even remember season 5 Vecna, having watched it just recently, because the total minutes he was on screen, well, I went back and checked this, was approximately 10 minutes and 27 seconds without counting the final episode. And all he does in the final episode is to die, so the build-up from season 4 did not pay off in the slightest. Instead, we get a really weird wordplay about hitting Dick and softening it in the middle of a crucial mission, and I was like... But before I could even try and understand what that wordplay was all about, Lucas gets clawed in the chest by a Demogorgon. Did his six-pack abs protect him? Maybe, or maybe he's just main cast. Anyway, so the delivery Gorgons have delivered 12 children to Vecna, and now it's time. The world as we know it will come to an end. But wait a second. Why does Vecna need 12 children again? Let's actually go back and analyze, just in case I missed something, word for word.
Can you see the children, William?
Yes?
Do you know why I chose them to reshape the world?
When you say reshape, do you mean destroy? Because those two words are definitely not the same.
It's 'cause they're weak. Weak in body. weak in mind.
So do they have to be weak in body and mind, or can it be either one? Both, right? I'm just gonna go with both.
Easily broken, easily reshaped,
Okay, but that doesn't really...
controlled. The perfect vessels.
Vessels? Vessels for what?
Some minds simply do not belong in this world. They belong in mine.
Okay, so he's consuming their minds so they can live in a fantasy world like Imagination Land from South Park. Okay. So I think I get it. No, I really do. No, wait, I don't. No, I do. See, he takes these kids to his own mind, feeds them with a fake reality, which for some reason is, well, black slime, and ultimately wants to reshape the world. And the word reshape for him means destroy because he's in the upside down. So it's reversed in meaning, kind of. And the kids, they give him power, but also keep him company in his lonely mind. So like a foster home. Honestly, I think this dude just wanted to be a foster dad of 12 children. And that whole consuming their power bit is just an excuse to keep them there. Henry, why didn't you say so before? And you might ask, why only 12 children, Fax? Why not all children, since they're all weak in body, mind? Because fuck them, that's why. Fuck everyone else, 12 is enough. Also, and don't judge me on this, but if you're living in a fantasy world like these kids do, is it really that bad to be fed some dark, slimy matter? Like, I get it, it's messed up, but I could really use some of that dark slime right now, man. Real life sucks. You know who else would have loved some of that slime? This guy. There's a moment where Elle and Hopper enter the military lab, and this poor scientist, who's clearly working overtime, gets so upset over his pens dropping. Like, look at him. I've never seen a man be more disappointed in himself than he was in that moment. My dude, you gotta lay off that coffee for a little bit. And then moments later he dies? Goes to show you, never work overtime, life is too short. Also, another problem I had with Vecna was that he used to float his victims, break their bones, and bam, finish them off. But for whatever reason, in season 5, he stopped doing his signature move. One of the best things about him. Like, I don't know why Vecna chose to strangle Max here. Maybe he thought, tried the floating thing before, didn't work with Max. Let me try to do, something else. Maybe strangle her this time. However long it takes, at least until Will can save her. And so when Will does take over and breaks Vecna's leg, it's such an embarrassing moment for him that he transforms back to being Henry. And he's right. He isn't nearly as terrifying as he used to be. Might as well be in human form forever. Also, why did they have to make him emotionally turmoiled? He just feels weak from the get-go. He looks like he's always about to cry. And the glasses definitely did not help. If anything, he looked like a professor going through a midlife crisis. And we're supposed to be afraid of this guy? Also, no offense to Derek. He had some good moments, but his only line was, "Suck my fat one, dipshit." Oh, and also suck a fat one. 2 lines, I guess. The problem with these new characters being added to the show is that there isn't any time to build them up. So they just end up being one-dimensional. And whenever I saw them on screen, I got genuinely upset because I don't care. Just go back to the other guys. I feel like if I wandered onto the set of Stranger Things, I might have just gotten a role in the show because it looks like they just about included anyone they could find. Season 5 revolved around, are you ready? Everyone from season 1, plus Robin, Vicky, Holly, Derek, and the twin dwarfs, Murray, Mr. Clark, Max, Henry, Dr. K, this angry soldier, and Callie. And they weren't just side characters. Like, they had way too much screen time, which automatically kills all the momentum any other character gets going. Because we gotta change scenes and listen to the other guys and see what the kids are up to. And what useless thing Dr. K is exploring again. Who was I even supposed to root for or feel something for? There's too much happening at once, constant cuts, different people planning different things. I didn't care at all for the new characters because they're suddenly here, part of the action. And sadly, I didn't feel anything for the main characters either because they were never in the spotlight and just didn't feel real enough. Also in episode 3, did Mr. Clark just spoil the whole upside down wormhole thing? More importantly, is this guy teaching kids in high school about wormholes? What is this, advanced physics? So by now we know that the upside down is just the inside of a wormhole, a connection to another universe called the Abyss that's basically in the sky of the upside down. And there's this massive energy like a ball that, sort of floats in the upside down, holding it all together. And when Nancy shoots at it, because, well, in case you missed it, Nancy shoots at everything now. That's her whole season 5 arc, shooting at things. It creates a hole in that wormhole wall, I think. I don't really know how it works. And that stretches out into nothingness or death, as Dustin puts it. And this hole causes a kind of vacuum effect, right? It starts sucking out the entirety of the Upside Down into it. Cars, trees, houses, except L. Hopper and Callie. And it makes sense because they've got insane core strength. And you're probably wondering how this huge tree with roots holding it deep into the ground got sucked in, and yet these guys were chilling. Well, yeah, but that tree didn't hit the gym every day, did it? No abs, no life, baby. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on here. I don't know, I really don't. And if you were to ask the Duffer Brothers, you'd probably get this response. But I mean, this isn't the only plot hole in season 5. Get it? Because it's a hole. One of my favorite scenes was when Dustin kept Steve from climbing onto the ladder, evidently prevents him from falling. It was emotional, touching, and overall a wholesome moment. Also the one where they say that bit about "you die, I die." I feel like the emotionally honest moments this season were between Dustin and Steve. Everything else felt forced. Like for instance, the breakup scene of Jonathan and Nancy. They're both stuck in a room that's dripping space cement for whatever reason, in such a convenient way that it only drips from the sides, not directly onto them. So they decide, you know what, these are our last moments together, let's break up. Whoa, did not see that coming. I'll give you that, Duffer Brothers. Finally, a twist. It's usually the opposite. You know, people in their last moments usually bond. End of the world feeling, all you've got is each other. Let's hug one last time. Nope. Let's break up. I don't want to die dating you. Ew. I don't know if it was Jonathan's acting, like it was intentional or not, but he seemed genuinely upset that Nancy kept agreeing with him. He did not look like he wanted to break up, like at all. I mean, the guy was carrying an engagement ring, for crying out loud, and you're telling me that he had a change of heart, literally at the verge of death? Then the cement stops miraculously because the Duffer Brothers realize that they don't need to kill characters if they can just kill their relationship. And don't even get me started on how their entire legs, hands were covered in this space cement. How come that didn't freeze? I'm no antimatter concrete expert or anything, but my guess is that the plot armor strikes again. You know what? I'm gonna start calling it something else. Maybe if we say something dumb like mango tree, you know, it will feel less forced and more like whatever, you know? So thanks to the mango tree, these guys survive after a very emotional but also weird breakup scene. I hope you like mangoes because we're about to get bombarded by mango trees. Let's face it, the Demogorgons have lost their touch by now. Not once was I slightly uncomfortable when they appeared on screen, because they just kept repeating the following sequence. Demogorgon appears, attacks soldiers, gets angry at main cast or ignores them completely, leaves. So instead of a threat, it felt more like a carefully rehearsed choreography, like a dance even. So whenever I heard screams and looked up from my phone to see a Demogorgon on screen, I was like, oh, it's just a Demogorgon, false alarm. But Vecna, who seems to really not take a hint, decides to send his dogs to the hospital to take out Max instead of finishing the job himself, even though they literally failed him 2 episodes ago. The guy should start his own business and hire people with low salary because this guy delegates. Yeah, I did the same joke again because Vecna tried the same tactic again. Sue me. And the Demogorgons, who can pinpoint an exact teleportation location like they did here with Holly, decide to just run into the hospital like rabid dogs instead of opening a portal inside of her hospital room, which of course gives our main characters the perfect time to eat some mangoes from the mango tree, by which I mean to escape. But the hospital scene totally takes the mango cake in terms of absurdity, so the Demogorgons once again repeat the same cycle. Don't forget, appear, attack soldiers, ignore main cast, leave. Somehow, Robin and Vicky are unscathed by these Demogorgons, even though I feel like if they had taken Vicky at least, it could have been a really cool emotional pivot moment for Robin's character, and maybe she would have stopped sounding so insanely happy all the time. Like, why is she still so chill here? You guys are about to be eaten by Demogorgons. But anyway, Robin then proceeds to explain to the viewer, even though she's looking at Vicky, it's us she's talking to, why they weren't attacked, because, well, they're not after us, she says. And while I can understand Robin ignoring 2 guys dying straight in front of her, I don't understand how Vicky, a nurse with no prior knowledge of anything that's happened so far, just super calmly proceeds to play along. Like 2 guys' heads just popped off in front of you and she proceeds to prepare herself a bowl of cereal. But it gets worse. The Demogorgons are sprinting like hell at first. when they enter the hospital. They're furious, like they can't wait to get to Max. Then Lucas, who remember was clawed on his chest literally a few episodes ago, is able to carry Max out to the elevator. And did he just kick a Demogorgon in the mouth with its million sharp teeth? Yes, he did. Mango tree, mango tree, mango tree. But then the Demogorgons get tired or something because they're slow all of a sudden. They don't chase Max anymore. Instead, are calmly looking for her in the washroom. They just want to talk. No big deal. When Lucas is not turning off the song on his CD player, nor is he lowering the volume. And to really grasp just how upsetting the scene was, we have to go back all the way to season 1. In season 1, the Demogorgon was usually acting based on noise or blood, so its senses are super high. But the song, even though it's louder than the music my neighbor plays every Sunday morning, does not alarm them in any way, shape, or form. It's so infuriating. Like Lucas says, she's coming back. We can't turn it off. Well, she'll be coming back as Demogorgon food, Lucas. You'll all be Demogorgon food if you don't turn it off, man. Now, Max, while in Memory Land, decides to take her time. She doesn't sprint. She doesn't even start walking towards her body while talking to Holly, which is something I definitely would have done. Holly, you know what? Let's just start walking that way. You just gotta believe. You have to be brave. You are brave. Faster, Holly, faster, please. Just believe in yourself, all right? But anyway, this wasn't even the most ridiculous part. During the shooting of Karen Wheeler fighting off a Demogorgon with a broken wine bottle. Sorry, it just sounds so hilarious when I say it. Anyway, in the documentary, there was all this talk about how she survived. The Duffer brothers saying, you should be dead realistically. It's a miracle. And then they even say, is it too much? Because there's so much blood, it makes no sense that she survived. You can actually see them actively contemplating whether they should have killed her off after all. But then they decide to give her another miracle instead. Karen, while lying half dead in her hospital bed, decides that these few days of rest should be more than enough. Robin makes an announcement on the hospital intercom to Lucas, warning him about the Demogorgons, and Karen hears it too. Then recovers instantly and even comes up with a plan in a few seconds. And note that she has no idea what's going on. She then proceeds to the washroom, and I have no idea how she knew they were there other than maybe she read the script. On her way down though, she carries an oxygen tank with her for no reason. None. So it makes no sense, but at this point, I just had to stop watching and take a fresh breath of air. So I went angry running. When you're mad at something and you just kind of sprint at random intervals to take out the frustration. Is that a thing? Anyway, when I came back, I Googled the weight of oxygen tanks. And this guy on Quora gave an estimation of 17 to 20 kilograms for a recreational aluminum oxygen tank. So she's able to carry 20 kilograms, even though we clearly see her hardly able to pull out the needle from her arm as seen before. But it gets better. While injured and barely able to walk, she somehow manages to quietly enter the washroom, put a very metal and heavy object inside the wash machine, while making no noise whatsoever. She then closes the wash machine door, still no sound, and then when the wash machine starts spinning, the Demogorgons magically notice the sound and immediately go check out the soon-to-be explosion. Mango tree, mango tree, mango tree. And what's up with the Demogorgons not being able to smell blood anymore? When did they stop doing that? Remember Barbara? She had a little cut on her finger and they snatched her away from the other dimension within seconds. And they should have been able to tell that Karen was approaching from a mile away. And on top of all this, they add this confused dog-like head movement of the Demogorgon right before the explosion as though they were puppies. Like, what was that supposed to be? Cute? Funny? These monsters have stopped being scary a long time ago, but now they're just mocking them. Watch this stupid dumb Demogorgon blow up, real. Shame, really, how they killed off the very thing that terrified us all in the first place. And I'm guessing Vecna is watching all this in his foster home, having tea parties with the kids and saying, well, touché, my friends. Touché. And okay, I didn't want to get into any of this, but because they gave us Karen hero arc in such a ridiculous way, I feel like I just have to say it. Karen and Billy, what was up with that? Like, Billy was still just a child with an abusive history, mental problems, and Karen was ready to take advantage of someone like that. A married woman who is, I don't know, at least 20 years older than him. I get that she never found this romantic lover, this Lana Del Rey song type of bad boy in Teddy, but man, do I wish they had chosen a different storyline other than her basically being a creepy predator and about to cheat on her husband. Think about it. If the roles were swapped, like If it was, say, Teddy at that pool checking out a girl, lifeguard or something, and they were gonna hang out someplace, how would people have reacted then? I'm pretty sure everyone would still be hating on Teddy, calling him creep and weirdo. But with Karen, no one cares. She's suddenly a badass that saved the day. Hooray! I also want to take a moment to appreciate Teddy, the dude who worked his ass off so this family could have these weird adventures every summer. I mean, the guy provided walkie-talkies, check, board games, sure, a basement he could have easily turned into a rec room dedicated for his children, because that's how great of a guy he is. Yup. Is he super romantic? Maybe not, but he's there when you need him. I think he should have been the hero in that hospital scene instead of Karen. So while Max wakes up in the hospital, Holly wakes up inside the mind flayer that for some reason is pretending to be a weird building with its legs looking upwards. It's standing on its head, genitals, we don't know, but it has a convenient door to go in and out of, which Holly uses, of course, to get out. And then she decides, screw it, can't be worse than this place, and jumps from the abyss into the upside down wormhole. And she starts free falling through what looks like hundreds of meteorites flying in the air, and the holy mango tree protects her from colliding with any of them. And right before she crashes to dust, Vecna saves her. And for some reason, everyone is upset. Like, why? She was literally about to die. I get that Nancy's upset because her sister is still up there. Wait, her sister? Really? Mike too? These guys are siblings? Yeah, unfortunately, with everything going on, even the family dynamics disappeared in season 5. Not once did I feel like people were family. I see Will and Jonathan and I'm thinking, just two guys, part of the gang. Even Dustin and Steve felt more brotherish than them. Moving on, the teacher joins the main gang and they send balloons attached with radio devices to the air and are able to narrow down the location of Dustin with something called trilateration. I googled this and I learned nothing. But basically, if I'm 20 kilometers away from a mall and 10 kilometers away from another mall and one final mall, say 5 kilometers I'm away from, you draw a circle and I have no idea how you figure that out. You know what? You win this time, Duffer Brothers. I don't even care. Send those balloons up to the air. Do your sneaky little physics. I'll get you next time. Evidently, they do find Dustin's location, are able to communicate with him literally from one dimension to another via these walkie-talkies. Really great walkie-talkie value, I guess. And then later, everyone gets lectured by Dustin and his teacher couldn't be more proud. Anyway, he mentions that he believes the weird creatures in the Upside Down all came from the Abyss. And later, when we see the Abyss, it turns out there is no monsters at all, only sand. But the creatures are also not in the Upside Down anymore, so who knows? Maybe they all got sucked out from the hole in the wormhole earlier? You know, the one that didn't affect Hopper, Elle, or Kelly? I really don't understand how the Upside Down went from this to this. The terror Nancy had by accidentally having entered the Upside Down felt so real. I was clenching my butt cheeks so bad. I hated the Upside Down. Let's never go there. Ever. But now it's a parallel universe hangout spot. Everyone's biking, walking, without a worry in the world. And I know that you noticed how boring the Upside Down had become, but to really depict just how boring it was, here's a Fax Machine 9000 director's cut of the Upside Down. I know I said that I hated the fact that Holly and the kids became the main characters of the show, but I feel like I have to reiterate. I hate that Holly and the kids became the main characters of the show. Because there was a scene where Henry talks to the children and immediately convinces them that Max is in fact a black thing or the evil monster, which was so pointless. Like, the only reason the scene ever existed was to prove one thing and one thing only, that Vecna was right. The children are weak in mind. Cool, thanks for proving a point, I guess. What were the writers thinking? That we would doubt Vecna? That we'd say, psh, that's dumb. Children are insanely smart. That's why we let them make their own decisions and let them loose into the world. That's literally their whole life arc, Henry. That's why we call them children. If they weren't clueless initially, we wouldn't call them children. We would call them something like, I don't know, wise little people. And I really didn't need to hear them chanting like back to the light 20 times over and over again while Henry was smiling deviously in the background. Really poor choice of fourth wall breakage, by the way. What was that? He was just smirking like, see, I told you so. Kids are weak. Haha, suck it. No, Henry, I won't suck anything. you should get your shit together and start doing some real damage, man, because you know what? The show's almost over. It was underwhelming to watch, to say the least, but I pushed through, and I hate the fact that I just used the term pushed through for Stranger Things. But hey, we've all seen Stranger Things. Will decides to come out right before the finale, and I'll be honest, I think that was pretty. We don't ever get to see Vecna prepare for a battle. He's never doing anything. Even though he clearly sees the gang coming for him, they keep ruining his plans. The Demogorgons fail to do his bidding, and yet here he is, chilling inside a Mind Flayer's... I'm not sure what it is. Its stomach? Inside a Mind Flayer, basically. Later on, when El appears and blasts Vecna down from that position, you can kind of see Vecna's face like, oh snap, they're here? Wait, what did I miss? What? But anyway, so instead of giving Vecna a few more minutes for him to plan or do anything that's not remotely pathetic, we get Will unproposing to all the girls in the world. I can totally see why this episode scored the lowest in the entire history of Stranger Things. I wasn't annoyed per se, I was just disappointed. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I changed my mind. I was annoyed. I mean, the whole idea that Vecna has control over you because you don't like girls and it's a secret, but now that everyone knows you can win, that kind of destroys the anticipation of the final fight, no? We don't even need to see it anymore because you already told us that you'd be able to win now. All the clock stuff, Vecna's 4 kills, the gates, his whole aura just gone. Poof. I'd much rather Will used an ass blaster bike and said, this is how I exercise and Vecna knows it. So I had to come clean. For the record, that's a reference to Sunny. Sorry if it got confusing. But okay, to get to the Abyss, they gotta enter the Upside Down first. And there's this portal heavily guarded by military people, you know, government's top people, basically. They have guns, explosives, training, all kinds of stuff. So they make a plan. The plan is to use this old truck and to just drive in. Just full sending it. And honestly, the only way for me to buy this entire sequence was to close my eyes and listen to it. Because only then could it be considered believable. None of the soldiers know how to aim at Murray. The windshield gets some bullet holes, so it's believable, I guess. But Murray doesn't even get hit in the arm or something. I mean, I don't know, just, you know, for some dramatic effect, it could have been cool. Raise the stakes a little bit. No, guys, we need to hurry or we might lose Murray. Nope, nothing. I'm telling you, those soldiers are all paid actors. Wait, and then Nancy, with no army training, of course, is able to take down military forces. Mango tree, mango tree, mango. Also, don't get me wrong, but I don't understand how Nancy can just kill people and be okay with it. And I read online, some people were arguing that these people were super evil for doing experiments on pregnant women and whatnot. And yeah, that's really messed up. But Nancy doesn't know any of that, does she? She just shoots one after the other, and her only reasoning is we need to get to the Upside Down to save the world. Like, even Batman refused to kill people no matter how terrible they were. Obviously, Nancy is no superhero, but I feel like killing someone, let alone a dozen people, should at least have some effect on your psychology. She just smiles at Hopper when Hopper tells her, you know, nice shooting back there. You do realize this is real life, right, Nancy? Not a video game? I think incompetent military personnel was one of the most disingenuous parts about this season that kept bugging me all the time. It felt so fake. Anyway, so in the final episode, Will continues to talk about him coming out, but this time it's for Mike only. And then Mike says, friends? No thanks. Lovers? Best friends. Oh, right. And remember this girl? Well, you better, because she's part of the main cast now. I can't recall any other show adding a new member to the team last second in a finale, but here we are. I don't care what you say, Lucas would have never left Max after months of waiting by her side. But the script requires everyone to be in the Abyss, so they just leave her with Vicky, the only person that doesn't know what to do if Vecna were to attack again. And Vecna will surely come after Max, right? I mean, he must have realized the Demogorgons had failed. He could easily do it. They're still at the hospital. Vecna, they haven't left, in case you haven't heard. You could just go do it yourself And that way, Elle could never enter your memories to attack you. Vecna? So instead of covering your loose ends, making sure there's absolutely no way they could ever reach him, because he knows very well that Max could show them the way, which is why he went after Max in the first place, he decides to start meditating with children. How convenient. I saw a post on Reddit that the CGI of The Abyss looked like Linkin Park's In the End music video, and even though I knew the song, I had no idea just how on point they were with that statement. Crazy. And Linkin Park did that 16 years ago, with probably not a budget of 400 million. At least the Linkin Park version had some monsters in it. Look! Demo bats! That moment when a music video from 16 years ago has a low-key better finale than your high-budget TV show. Oh, and another thing that always bugged me. Remember back in season 1 when Elle's nose would bleed when she used her powers? And the way they kept showing it was like, she's wasting energy. She's bleeding out. And I always felt that, her power had consequences. That maybe, at some point it was going to be like, well, too much nosebleed. She might die now. Or no more powers for a while. But the nosebleed was just nosebleed, I guess. No repercussions. There's also this strange detail that I kept thinking about, which made absolutely no sense. At the 31st minute mark of the final episode, Elle and Callie appear out of the bushes, but Max hears these monster-like sounds and she looks startled, like something is wrong. Even the imagery was weird, like it was filmed to make us think something isn't right, but then nothing came of it. What was that about? It made me so confused, because I genuinely thought that Vecna was behind these images of Elle and Callie, that he was manipulating Max's mind again, but nope. Just some intern adding some random sound effects, I guess. One of the biggest mango trees we'll see all season is here. So when Derek, the kid with that one line, two, was able to pull back Holly against Vecna's monster arm and supposedly insane power, he could have even made Derek fly back with a small head movement to ensure he catches her, but chooses not to because, as I said, you still don't believe me, do you? He loves these kids. He sees himself as their foster dad, so he uses controlled force. What a loser of a villain, man. He has them attached to literal tubes and he's still losing. Honestly, Vecna's entire arc this last season was to follow children into the forest and then get beat by them. Fast forward to Elle suddenly realizing, wait, I could jump that boulder next to the moon and climb up to the abyss. And I'm here thinking, at least put a close-up boulder so it's believable. Here, let me do it. Took me like 2 minutes. And I know it looks super bad, but at least it's honest and it makes sense. And of course, they don't show us the jump. I'm, fairly certain that they had that filmed, but decided to cut it because it probably looked super ridiculous. Now, I'm not good at CGI or anything else really, but I can try to make an edit for your reference. And instead of the jump, the Duffer Brothers try to distract us. They use emotional footage to make us feel nostalgic and to just ignore Elle's impossible jump. Forget that, I'm not falling for that. They showed us, Elle and Hopper as they bond, heartwarming father-daughter moments, and look, they're setting a trap together. They're even playing with the radio. Wait, how did Elle joined the fight? So when Henry's crying with tears running down his cheeks because of that one bad memory that changed the course of his life, I didn't really feel sorry for him or empathize. I was just like, dude, aren't you gonna fight these guys in a few minutes? Should you really be crying right now? Honestly, I felt like anytime I saw Henry this season, he was either crying or about to tear up, which is okay if it's an emotional moment. But turns out they were all emotional moments. By the way, kudos to this kid who did an amazing job portraying Child Henry. Really delivered that fear so well. Bravo. And okay, so you're making the villain cry right before the ultimate fight. Cool, fine, whatever. But then Will connects via FaceTime and he's empathizing with our teary villain, the sad little Henry, telling him he didn't have a choice, that he's just a sad little boy, and Henry just responds with the emotional intelligence of a 6-year-old and says, shut up, go away. First of all, weird, Will. Even if he didn't have a choice, he killed a lot of people, decent people. Come to think of it, he actually didn't kill anyone Will ever cared about. or anyone ever cared about. So I guess it makes sense that they're not holding any real grudges against Vecna. But Vecna crying and then yelling go away did it for me. Granted, I wasn't scared of Vecna ever this season, but in that moment, I just wanted it to be over, man. Like, do what you gotta do, cause this weak-ass Henry ain't putting up a fight ever. The guy is emotionally unstable and needs a psychiatrist like yesterday. They took away Vecna's terror, his strength, his mystery, basically everything that made him scary and intimidating in the first place, and I will never forgive them for that. And after all that nonsense, they expect me to enjoy the final fight after I just saw the final boss cry like a toddler. Honestly, I kind of wish that in that moment, Henry just decided to join them on this fight. Like maybe Will actually is able to convince him by tapping into his mind or something and show him how after he told everyone his truth, he felt free. And I don't know, Henry's like, I hear you, man, I want to help. And then they join powers to fight off hundreds of Demogorgons, Demobats, some more weird creatures, and the Mind Flayer in a much more realistic ultimate face-off. That doesn't last, say, 2 minutes. And of course, the final fight was underwhelming. I mean, they prepared us for it to be as lame as it possibly could be. Nothing felt threatening and the gang was invincible. Vecna is fighting Will and Elle. The Mind Flayer is fighting the gang, a couple of humans, and it was over in like a few minutes, as I said. At no point did I feel like something could go wrong, which basically meant that this was just another target practice for the gang, only bigger and maybe more expensive production-wise. Remember how the Demogorgons don't ever flinch when shot at? Well, the Mind Flayer, who is their CEO, gets hit by a few bullets and it starts to lose its mind, literally screams in agony trying to catch Nancy. And when the Mind Flayer crashed into the mountains, Vecna has that moment where he kind of stumbles. The final boss stumbled. Even though he can levitate or has vines to keep himself stable, it killed any expectations I had left. All I saw was an old man who forgot his cane at home. How is he even supposed to put on a fight? Oh wait, no, it's over. They just killed him. I blinked and he was dead. I didn't really see exactly how, but I assume with a little bit of friendship, imagination, and love, and a lot of mango trees, Vecna is defeated and Joyce is here to cut off the head as a final touch, even though she didn't do anything the entire season. Also, the Mind Flayer was burning literally a few seconds ago, but for some reason, the insides are all intact, and I have no idea why this defeated Mind Flayer still has an entrance, like an open house visit thing, because it looked like it collapsed. But anyway, the cast enters it and they hug each other goodbye. Remember when Dustin mentioned how by blowing up the Upside Down, they get rid of the wormhole and the abyss and all the monsters within it? And yet a few episodes ago, he was saying that if they disturb the bridge or that, ball, that matter thing, both their worlds would collapse and they all die. For some reason, that doesn't happen. Their world stays intact. The explosion that they create to get rid of the Upside Down, it only takes the Upside Down and the abyss with it. Elle, in an ultimate conundrum, decides to sacrifice herself at the gate as the bridge is collapsing. Weird that they decide to keep Steve from falling, Jonathan and Nancy from stoning, but Elle has to die. And I think there is a simple explanation. They just couldn't figure out what to do with her. In the documentary, they talk about whether Elle should live or die, but then end up deciding to kill her. And it's because they just couldn't figure out a happy ending where the government isn't after Elle. The entire time in Stranger Things, if there's one storyline that never changed, it was Elle being hunted down by government people so that she can be studied. And the Duffer Brothers just couldn't come up with anything other than, f it, let's just kill her. One person, not even part of the gang really, sort of a lab rat anyway. And Elle fans will be upset, but we can't all have happy endings, can we? Well, we can, just not the Elle fans. Everyone else can. And they get to say, we do kill characters. We killed Elle off, the basically main character, along with the 20 other main characters. And let's say they somehow made her powers disappear. Dr. K or someone else would have done experiments on her regardless in hopes of bringing them back somehow. So that clearly wasn't an option. Sadly enough, there was just no outcome for Elle to ever exist in Hawkins or even anywhere else without being hunted down. Following the show this last season just felt like a chore more than an enjoyable goodbye for me. It was just all so tiring. Strange plot lines you have to ignore, a final fight that left you wondering why they even filmed that entire sequence, so many uninteresting new characters that were part of the main story and then suddenly weren't. Take Dr. K. She was an intimidating soldier who I thought was going to play like an integral part of the story, and then she just ended up being the lady that, wanted to capture 11 to make more 11s. And yet, we already had this storyline with Dr. Brenner. So it ultimately ended up being another recycled, half-baked idea that was just sprinkled into season 5 for no apparent reason other than Dr. K's actor loved the show and wanted to be part of it. That's what I found out online anyway. It really felt like they kept adding characters because they wanted to be nice, and kept adding scenes because Netflix demanded as much view time as possible. The only few deaths in season 5 were like that weird guy in the cave, Vecna, and the scientist who dropped his pens. And I'll be honest, to me, Vecna's death felt pretty sad. But the scientist's death felt even sadder. Because the last thing that dude remembers is how much of a disappointment he was to the nation by dropping those pens. Oh, and Kali, yeah. That one girl we saw once in an episode, then never heard of again until the very end, only for her to patronize Elle and telling her they need to die too, and then kind of stick around with Elle as a sidekick. The only time she's actually, useful and does something is to hide the children from Vecna. But instead, I feel like they could have just started running, which would have given them a big head start. Oh, right. They had to stay there because Max wanted to prove how weak in mind the children were and how easy it was to manipulate them by once again showing who the real monster was all along. I don't know, honestly, why obsess over the children anyway? Like, why is Henry chasing them here? What is he gonna do? Doesn't he need like candlelight, calmness, quiet, to enter into this deep meditative state to even start moving the worlds? How could he ever do that if Elle and Callie are there to disturb him, in his chambers? Shouldn't he have done something about them first? Like maybe start taking real action and then worry about the kids. It's not like they're going anywhere. Anyway, so when they did show us Callie's death scene, I didn't feel anything. I didn't know her yet, and now she's dead. Okay, sad, I guess. And there were so many more filler scenes with the kids fighting, Murray always making weird jokes. Wait, did he just refer to the kids as eggs? Just so much going on, and yet nothing feeling like it actually mattered. In the final scenes, Steve, Jonathan, Nancy, and Robin meet up at this, old radio tower place, and Robin says that she misses them just hanging out together. And I had to pause because I was actively trying to remember if they ever just hung out together. I still can't. With Steve, sure. With Jonathan and Nancy, I don't think so. As far as I remember, it's been war mode the entire time after Robin joined in season 3. I don't think they ever just hung out. Plus, you couldn't get Steve and Jonathan to calmly sit and have a normal conversation without them trying to win over Nancy every 5 seconds. So, you know what? Didn't happen, Robin. But I guess that's kind of the point. Things that never happened can be brought up as though they have. People can make stuff up, interpret things, we can assume anything, and we even should, because the finale or even the final season just wasn't enough to give us answers. Practically everything is left to our imagination. And I mean, sure, we can imagine, but it doesn't feel honest, To a viewer base that's been following the show for more than 10 years now, it feels disrespectful. So with everything that we've talked about, I just want to say the writing this season was simply an insult at our intelligence. It sucked. And I generally tried so hard to write as little as possible. Like, I didn't want to take every single detail, and yet I still ended up with so much stuff. And I'm sure there's things I'm still missing, like the final scenes of Joyce that, were also super, super underwhelming, and I wish they just didn't show it at all. It was so lifeless. She's sitting at this fancy restaurant with Hopper, right, in the last scene of the show she will basically ever be in again, and she has like one line for every 20 lines that Hopper has. I don't know if it was about budget and she being a more expensive actor or whatever. Even the lines that she had felt so lifeless. She never had her own thing the entire season. All she ever did was agree, disagree, or react. She was practically a mirror. Without another person across her, she had nothing to offer. What piqued my interest in Stranger Things were initially the characters. You care for the people. And then the story starts to grab you. Something happened in that focus group that, made the writers say people don't care about the story at all all they care about is the people, so let's make it about them. And then, yeah, we get to see everyone over and over again, but the story just doesn't progress. It makes no sense. Now, you have no reason to believe me, but I wrote that previous line that I just said about the focus group before I even watched the documentary, as it wasn't out yet. But 40 minutes into the documentary, the Duffer Brothers say something like, what people don't understand when we're not killing people off is because we're always like, we have to maintain the sense of fun, or it doesn't become the show anymore. It becomes depressing. Actually, no, I do get it, but that doesn't automatically make a show fun. It makes it, how do you say, fatiguing? You have 30 different characters now, and you have no idea how to proceed with the writing since you revealed that you started shooting episode 8 and didn't even have an ending yet. If only you had a way to narrow down the characters so you could have an easier time to write them, focusing only on a few and creating something that's not only fun, but also meaningful, if a little bit depressing at times. Because the depressing bit when Eddie died, when Joyce couldn't find her son, those moments were what made the show special, that made it feel sincere. Now it's fun adventure time all the time with infinite plot armor. Sorry, mango trees, let's all hug and laugh together because this is fun, yay! They even talk about how we care about the characters more than the spectacle, and while that is partially true, we do care about the spectacle. That's why everyone hoped there was an episode 9 where Vecna somehow revived, or Billy came from the dead as a final boss, a real final boss, with an army of, say, Demogorgons or something. But ultimately, what they did is they took no risks. They didn't take anyone out, because if even one person is upset that their favorite character is dead, it's a loss in their eyes. The Duffer Brothers, in my opinion, confused loyalty with stupidity. Just because we liked the show doesn't mean we were dumb. But instead they said, hey, look, we don't care. This is what we wrote, and it's what you're getting, and we know you're going to eat it up because you love these guys. If not Steve, then Jonathan. If neither, then Elle. Let's face it, you're just not going to care how stupid this is because you just want them to succeed, and we're going to give you just that. Wait, except for Elle, she's not getting out. But for those who got upset, we don't want that. We want to make sure that this show is fun for everyone, even you, the Elle fans. So we've got Mike telling you an alternate ending. Even though it could never be true, it makes no sense to see Callie still alive since this shot proved that she clearly had died. But in the alternate ending, she's still alive and is able to even cast her power to hide Elle from sneaking out of the gate. And Elle makes it out, you guys. She's having fun hiking and looking at mountains and stuff. No idea how she got a plane without a passport, but you can just interpret that bit. Right? I just wanted some honesty, wit, something that makes a tiny bit more sense. Real stakes, people actually struggling, consequences. Like, don't kill them, whatever. But make Steve lose an arm, make someone take a bullet, and now they're running out of time because if they don't hurry, someone could die. No stakes, zero, none. Instead, we get a script that goes, guns go pow pow, Vecna sad, the end. I mean, the conformity gate theory proved that most people, even if not everyone, were not happy with that ending, at all. Everyone wanted to desperately believe there was a secret episode that would ultimately answer remaining questions, return Elle to screen, give the main cast more screen time, and so much more that we didn't get to have in this last season because of Holly fatigue. Honestly, if I were Netflix, I would secretly start filming an episode 9 just for the memes. I mean, it's practically free money. They could just publish it on the 1st of April or something, like an April Fool's joke. They don't even have to do any marketing. The super unsatisfying ending of season 5 and, season 5 in of itself is enough marketing to sell that 9th episode, I would say. But ultimately, I really don't think that this is the end of Stranger Things. Like Netflix's most successful show of all time, only to just vanish without keeping a few doors open? No way. This is free money for them, and they're surely gonna milk it. A movie, some spin-offs, everything's on the table. But I sincerely hope, for the sake of the future of Stranger Things, that they use some of that Warner Brothers equipment to help with the blue screen and the lighting and whatnot. Because look, this was season 4, and this is season 5. What happened? Where did all the money go? I guess they had no money left for the color grading guy, but even an Instagram filter might have made this look better. It's safe to say that Dustin was, in my opinion, probably one of the best written characters this entire season. Last but not least, the documentary. I want to start by saying that I enjoyed the documentary more than season 5 of Stranger Things. It was honest, cool to see, and really interesting all around. All those talented people working from behind the scenes that we take for granted, and then some random dude like myself talks in a YouTube video about how much they hated it, must suck. I really think they did all a great and amazing job. They were amazing all around, and I wish them nothing but the best in their future careers. Insanely talented artists, every one of them. My complaints are not to those who worked on the show, but to those that maybe pushed them into rushing things, that pulled the strings from behind the curtains. Because in the documentary, they say that they have 240 days to shoot and that it's not nearly enough. And even one of the Duffer brothers later admits, we kind of know the ending, we just need to write it, but we don't have the time. Which might sound like an excuse, but to me, it sounded more like we don't have any choice. If it were up to us, we'd film it for 480 days and make this right, but I don't know. One of them even says that he has 2 kids now, and that it's a tough career to have with kids because he can't write as much. Now, this guy clearly hasn't worked at a 9 to 5 because it's not a 9 to 5, it's an 8 to 5. Everyone always says it's 9, but they expect you to be there at 8, and unless you're working from home, good luck seeing your kids for a few hours, maybe every day. Plus, your pay is probably like 99 times less than a director's, so you gotta slave your entire life basically, and you can't just do a few projects and then retire. But I also get it, he's right. Having kids isn't easy. It should not be an excuse though. They should have given it more time, another year if necessary. I don't know, either the Duffer brothers had all the time in the world and due to procrastination, they couldn't come up with anything good. Or Netflix was like, well, it's time, we need season 5 Stranger Things out of the blue, because they needed the money with that splurge of buying out Warner Brothers. And I mean, well, they got it, right? Even if the final season sucked, 8.4 billion minutes viewed by November 30. Well, we know what Netflix asked for their Christmas present, and boy did Santa deliver. So about that whole demo fatigue, we've covered it, but I feel like there's something, I don't know, fishy going on in the background that they just couldn't admit. Like, look at their faces here. I don't want to speculate too much, but I'm going to speculate a little. Something tells me that the budget fairies were likely exhausted and they couldn't magically put Demogorgons into the final episode anymore. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I highly doubt that they'd pass on putting in Demogorgons to the abyss, because I'm pretty sure they're not insane. If only they had killed off some of these characters to have been able to pay for color grading and Demogorgon effects instead of some of the actors, maybe. Again, only a speculation. Now, I have been writing scripts myself lately, including this one, and let me tell you, these are not the looks of people who are happy with their scripts. I've had that look dozens of times, and it's not just being tired. I really think the Duffer brothers were genuinely upset. Also, whenever I saw Nancy in these behind the scenes, I felt like she wasn't too happy with what's been going on in this last season. She literally asks the Duffer brothers at some point, if they were actually consulting anybody that knew physics about the whole abyss wormhole situation. And they were all like, yeah, don't worry about it. It all makes sense. Right. Ultimately, the behind the scenes were sad to see, because even with all those talented people doing their best, the script was just too bad or weak to be saved. I mean, we already know that with a proper script like season 1, even without an insane budget, you can make great television. I get the sense that the Duffer brothers are really emotional people and maybe just never could bring themselves to kill off characters. Not for the sake of the viewers, but for their own sake. Maybe they saw the characters as friends, felt a connection to them, something that just made them decide each time, no, I don't want to lose Steve. And man, they had a lot of those decisions in that finale, I feel like. Because in the documentary, you'll realize that they're struggling to come up with things that would hurt the characters. In fact, they refuse to even consider it. They seem like they genuinely care about the characters, but also the people behind those characters, the actors themselves. It's like the Duffer brothers are real-life versions of Michael Scott from The Office, where he doesn't want to fire anybody and just wants to be liked and be friends with everyone. I don't know, maybe that's also their style? And who am I to say boo? Thank you for ultimately creating a show that has helped millions with its nostalgia, fun, friendship, and so many more emotions along the way. It was nice while it lasted. You've just received a fax from Fax Machine 9000. Thank you so much. I don't know, I'm just trying different catchphrases.